Ghana, the
or
creative
something like
industry,
$3 billion
through the
worth
years.
of food, or maybe even more. So I know sugar and rice alone is close to 2 billion, sugar, rice, and flour. So under Achampong, Ghana became fully self-sufficient in food, and it was through a program called Operation Feed Yourself. So as a child, I was fascinated by how machinery could transform agriculture, and also fishing. Till today they call an outboard motor society, which is a society of fishermen or association. So I dreamed of how I could contribute to food security in Ghana. And I ended up studying mechanical engineering, primarily because all the universities that offered some kind of agricultural engineering program, there were no girls there. So I wanted to go to a university where there was a balance of men and women.
Yeah.
So I actually chose the first university in England to accept women, which was University College London, and accept blacks and accept everybody. And I mean, we take it for granted, but until 1860-something, when University College London was established, there were no universities in England. Oxford and Cambridge and everything that came before UCL, they were theological seminaries. They were based on religion. They were not based on science or, let's say, knowledge. So, and I've been to Timbuktu, where there are 1,000-year-old universities. So when people say, when people talk about education and the way in which we perceive, foreign education, actually it's a myth. People were coming to Africa to study for thousands and thousands of years. So anyway, I studied mechanical engineering, but during that journey, I realized I was much more passionate about something else, which is the arts. And to be fair, I mean, Kafu, ever since we were children, we were always fascinated by music. I started recording music when I was 10 or 11 years old. I would say semi-professionally, because I was recording demos for grown men who were musicians. And this came about because my grandfather and my father gave my brother and I a reel-to-reel machine. And
Ghana,
on a reel-to-reel
the creative
machine, you could make
industry,
high-quality
through the
recording.
years.
So it's not that I was blessed in any way, it's just that I had the machine, which allowed you to record a demo, which GTV or GBC would play, because GBC would only play your music if it was on quarter-inch tape or if it was on vinyl. So if I recorded your demo, you could bring it to GTV or GBC at that time.
So the spark was there from even when you were young and you had access to these
Yes. So
Blakk Rasta,
yes.
What is your journey into the creative arts system?
Creative arts. In fact, at a very young age, I realized I could write. Write poems, write, even movie scripts at a young age, because my father was a teacher, mother teacher. So books everywhere in the house. And then I was fascinated by just writing, and people thought that it was good. Then we had the Ras Theatre Group, which was a theatre group that had people singing, rapping, and also doing drama. And I wrote all the drama, all the poems and all that. Some other people did the singing. Honestly, I never knew that there would be a day that I was going to singing, because for me at the time, singing was left to people who didn't have so much education. And I felt that coming from a home that was all about education, music was out of the boat, but writing a few scripts left, right, and center, and then going later into attempting to write a song, which was a melody I picked up from, I think Raskimono or somebody like that. And people said it was good. So I went into the studio to record a demo when I was at UST, Kumasi, first year. We recorded a demo in Kumasi, and people thought it was good. Released the first album, and it was like, yeah, Charlie, the thing is getting hotter and hotter. For my second album, I told myself I was not going to do digital anymore. So I came to Panji's studio for my second album. And in fact, we ended up recording nothing, because the philosophies we went into, Panji is a very interesting brother who would bring in so many philosophies. And then we gelled right from the start. I was coming from Takrady. So I came to record music, because he had recorded people like Sheriff Gali and some other people, live recordings which I liked, and I wanted to do something more analog. we ended up talking about African history, philosophies. So I didn't go back with a master recording, but I went back with a lot of philosophies and ideas.
Mind open up.
Mind open up.
Maybe so. Nice. I'm glad to know that you guys linked up back in the day.
We met, Blakk Rasta and I met in Tamale, even before.
Even before, yes.
Yeah, long
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So this is over like 20, 30 years now.
Yes.
You guys have known each
more
other.
than 20,
More than
25 years, I would say.
25 years plus.
Wow. As a creative, Panji, and you've done a lot. I mean, it's not just music. You've been a journalist, you've been a scriptwriter, a film producer, you've managed to produce hip life pioneers, just talking drums, Atenten Band, you've organized the cultural caravan back in the day. So collaborated with so many people. What are the big challenges for you as a creative? Looking back when you started, what was the challenge, and now, what are the challenges?
Well, I would say when you enter the creative space, for me, it was very different. Let's say if I had entered the job market as an engineer, I've spent 20 years in school, more or less. You've studied something, you go straight to work. They assume you know what you are doing. You start getting paid well. As a creative, however, what you fail to appreciate is that it can take you 5 or 7 or 10 years to find your footing.
So time. You need time
yes.
to cook.
And sometimes I
Donna,
say,
the
if I had
creative
known
industry through the years.
this journey would take 10 or 15 or 20 years, I may not have entered because I didn't realize how long it would take to find relative success.
Yeah.
So I think we underestimate how much time it takes to learn the art that we want to practice. So like Blakk Rasta is saying, it's something you've been doing since you were a child, but to do it professionally, you've got to understand there's going to be a period of apprenticeship. There's going to be a period of learning. There's going to be a period of discovering who you are. Because until you accept who you are, it is difficult to be an artist. Because an artist must express what they feel. So if I'm denying what I feel or who I am, how do I turn that into a unique form of art?
Right.
So I think, it's most of us don't really embrace who we are when, you're in your teens or in your early 20s. So I think that process of learning and discovering who you are and accepting who you are. In fact, you may know who you are, but you might not accept who you are.
Okay.
So I think at some point, in order to be a successful artist, you've got to accept that, okay, this is who I am. I'm not going to pretend to be anybody or anything else because I think that is what people will like.
Good.
I've got to accept that this is who I am. Let me express myself. And if people embrace that, well and good.
Okay. I see Blakk Rasta nodding. You agree to some extent? I mean, what are the challenges that you faced as a beginning creative?
Well, I would say acceptance. I've had a big problem with acceptance.
Because you were born in a Muslim family, right?
Yes, Muslim family, and then coming
Ahmadi?
out of Ahmadi, yes, coming out of the Muslim home, and then you say that you are singing, and all that. It was a problem to get that acceptance, and especially also from a home that was only about education.
So mommy and daddy were not in
They were
support?
not in support of that at all. Go to the university, crack your grades, go to England, finish up your masters and PhD, come home wearing suits and all that. That was the mind. Because I was born in the ghetto and we were the only kind of spotlight in there. Just interested in education.
What was life like in Mushizongo and Abuabu?
Whoa! Life was something else. In fact, we went to bed without knowing what we're going to eat the next day.
Which of the Mushizongos and Abuabus are this? Tamale or Kumasi? Where?
That's Tamale.
Tamale.
Tamale, yes. I mean, well, it was nice in those days, though, because there wasn't too much selfishness like that. You could walk into anybody's house and just ask for food. If there was, you would share. Anybody could call anybody's son and send them on errands and all that. It was beautiful. My biggest challenge was with acceptance, And up till now, I think I have that problem. You see, Ghanaians are so good at, this is what we know him for. He has to remain there till the end of life.
You want it to be fixed like a stone.
Fixed. You cannot move, yes. You see, yesterday I met a schoolmate of mine. He's a soldier. And then he told me, Blakk, so what happened to all the knowledge that you got from the university? I mean, in class, you were hot, you were this, you were that. We all envied you, wanted to be like you. But now I just see you on TV and hear you on radio, making noise and all that. Yes, noise. We expected you to be an engineer or maybe a big politician or something like that.
Here who's not
see that? They don't see the creative arts as something on its own as intellectual.
So that's a big challenge.
It's a big challenge.
What was your response to this soldier man?
Soldier man, well, I told him that, well, I mean, what I'm doing is the same thing that I was
the
told at the
creative
university
industry,
to come and do.
through the
We
years.
all cannot be engineers. We all will reach the destination via different routes. So these are some of the routes. This, what I'm doing, makes me happy. And I feel accomplished because I talk to so many people. Years later, they tell me that, oh, wow, you know, you changed my life. You know, you said this and that and that. Even my music, it's taught a lot of people that I cannot imagine.
In the end, did mommy and daddy accept?
They did when BBC started playing my music. In fact, the first album was played on Ghana's Independence Day. I remember it was even recorded. I used to have the tape. I'm going to find it. And they were surprised. My father was a BBC man. He would listen to BBC from morning till night.
And then he heard your song.
He heard my music on the radio. And it was like, wow. I remember that day he bought me a radio set and all that.
Was you called Blakk Rasta then?
Well, he never wanted to call me Blakk Rasta.
What was your name then when your daddy heard?
Abubakar Ahmed.
Was that the name that you used for that song that your father heard on radio?
No, he heard Blakk Rasta. He knew I was called Blakk Rasta, but he never wanted to call me Blakk Rasta until he went looking for a job. And then the boss who was going to interview him for the job, he was a contractor, you know. His phone started ringing, and it was Barack Obama that was playing years later. And then he told him, oh, that's my son's music you are hearing. You know, said, who is your son? You mean Blakk Rasta? I said, yeah, Blakk Rasta is my son. And he told me later. So I feel that he accepted it before he went home.
Okay.
Yeah.
So say, Panji talked about time, the need for time. You talked about the challenges of acceptance, people expecting you to be fixed like a rock.
Yes.
Back to Panji now. So you have done a lot of behind the scenes work, producing and managing artists. How has the production landscape changed from when you started till now?
I think the biggest change is the cost of producing music.
Has it come down?
It has really, really, really come down. Okay. And so the entry point for, I would say, all the creative arts, music, making films, I can make a film on my phone, right? And, you know, I remember, I think it was 1992, I bought my first video camera. And in 1992, that Sony VX1E, which was a very poor quality camera compared to my phone. So my phone takes better video than that Sony video camera did 1992. So I guess it's 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But 30 years ago, that camera cost £3,000. It was, you know, it's like 3 or 4 months of salary of or more. So it was hugely expensive. And we had to invest a lot of money in order to be creative
industry
30 years ago.
Through the years.
Today, you can be creative with very little.
Has that affected quality now?
It's affected quantity. There is still quality in there. There has always been quality in production, I would say, and there has always been crap, forgive the word, in production. So I don't think the cost of production coming down has stopped people who are going to create great stuff from doing so.
Right.
And I think, I mean, I see things sometimes which I can see some young person has made with very few resources, and it only makes me admire the product more, is that you don't allow your limitations to stop you from being creative. So I think it's much cheaper and much easier to be creative now. It's also much easier to share your creativity.
Yes. Back in the day, how were you sharing your music? When you made music with all these guys at Tente, how did you share the music?
Well, it's, I mean, in those days, before the advent of the CD, duplicating records was incredibly expensive. Then came cassettes and the cost of duplicating. So with cassettes, you could record your music onto a cassette and go and play it to people.
Ghana, the creative industry,
even in
through
order
the years.
to be able to distribute your music, you still had to spend a lot of money. Today, I can just upload it to my Instagram, and I've shared it with everybody, and it costs me absolutely nothing. So I really think that this generation or this era is incredibly fortunate to be able to be so creative without having to spend
a lot of money.
so much money.
Okay. Yes. Before I come back to Blakk Rasta, I'm just curious. He said he faced a lot of family opposition from when he wanted to enter into the arts. What was your experience like?
Well, I mean, my father was a pediatrician in the army.
Yes.
So my father was a military man, but to my father's great credit, may he rest in peace, my father didn't insist on any of us following in his footsteps. My father has 4 children. None of us are doctors.
Ghana, the creative industry.
Actually, my father admitted to us that he wanted to be a philosopher.
Okay, a thinker. Wow.
Yes, and his mother told him, you know, we are in a state of development and evolution. So your generation cannot afford to be philosophers. Your generation needs to be doctors. So children, you know, Ghana had a very high mortality rate.
People are dying.
Yes, yeah. And my father's own younger sister died within, let's say, the first year of her life.
Oh my God.
So my grandmother only had 1 child. So my father accepted that, okay, you know, we need to help children live longer.
Exactly.
So I guess in tribute to his mother in some way, or he decided, okay, or, well, his mother told him, your generation needs to be doctors, especially children's doctors, so they can live long enough to appreciate philosophy. Maybe your children's generation can do philosophy.
Your mother was a prophet.
My grandmother.
Your grandmother was a prophet.
Yes.
Because you are the philosopher.
Look, my father was an incredible man. Anybody who has ever met my father, I mean, my father died when I was in my 40s. Throughout my lifetime, I've never heard my father raise his voice to anybody, right? I've never heard my father shout at nobody, never at his children, never at anybody. My father treated everybody exactly the same, whether you were a major general or whether you were private. And famously, at 37, where my father treated children,
Ghana, the
when he
creative
came
industry
to his
through the
office every
years.
morning, he would treat children in order of how serious their illness was. Of course, a brigadier's wife will come and insist they treat her child first. And my father always used to say, your child has no rank. Your husband may be a general, but your children have no rank. So I'm going to treat the child of the Bob No rank private, if that is the sickest child.
Yeah.
So my father would arrange all the children in order of how ill they were. And this created friction for my father, because let's say my father was a colonel and somebody's husband is a brigadier. It's like, how do you disrespect me and my husband? You know, you should treat me first so I can hurry up and go home. Yeah. But when the revolution came in 79 and all the army officers were running away from Burma camp, my father was fearless. He went to the hospital to treat people who were injured. And soldiers came to our house to protect us. Nobody sent them. They just loved my father, and they thought that, you know, we will come and make sure that your wife and family are fine, because you are not in the house to look after them. You've gone to the hospital to work. Almost every other officer who lived around us in Juba Ridge, everybody ran away. And in fact, many of their families and children ran to our house because they felt our house would be a safe place. And they were right. So, you know, my father's philosophy of, I'm going to treat everybody the same. Everybody is my equal. Nobody's greater than me. Nobody's smaller than me. And he spoke to everybody the same way. Saved, well, I won't say saved our lives, but definitely increased the quality of our lives. And it was something we didn't appreciate until the coup came in 1979. And we realized, hey, my father is one of the few senior officers, because he was a colonel at the time, that has this relationship with the other ranks, as they were called in the 79 coup. So, you know, my father didn't, even though he never said it, my father didn't encourage us or discourage us from doing anything. But just like Blakk Rasta said, after, you know, I abandoned my engineering path and I went into journalism.
Did you get the degree?
No, I left university before I finished. I was in my final year and I realized, man, I'm wasting my time here. And I was offered a job as an apprentice journalist. And I knew that is where I wanted to go. So,
Ghana, the creative
I have
industry
to admit,
through the years.
Reflecting back, it was just a few months left.
You could have finished.
I could have finished. And at the time somebody said, oh, just finish so you have something to fall back on. But rather than encouraging me to finish, when I heard that, I said, no, I don't want to fall back. I want to move forward.
So there's
if I have nothing to fall back on, I have to go forward. So it did exactly the opposite. Rather than encourage me to finish, it made me decide, no, I don't want anything to fall back on. I know where I want to go. And maybe and it's to be fair, if I had something to fall back on, I may have fallen back.
Yes, and you may not have created pidgin music and all that.
No,
stuff.
and I may have not gone in this direction. So, I mean, looking back, maybe that would not have been the case. But as a young, hot-headed man,
you have to go.
Takashi.
You're watching GTV Breakfast. I'm here with Panji and Blakk Rasta. We're looking at the creative industry through the years. And between both of them, I'm sure they have like 50, 60, 70 years of experience in the game. Blakk Rasta, you've always been a voice for people. Has your message evolved over the years?
It has.
I mean, what were you talking? What were you speaking to the people about?
Well, I would say I experimented a lot. I mean, inspired by reggae music. We all wanted to be Jamaicans at the start, of it all.
So you drop in patois?
Patois, a lot of patois, and a lot of Jamaican vibes and all that. And we didn't want to hear anybody discourage us. And the more our music sounded Jamaican, the better.
So
we didn't want the music to sound like us. We wanted it to sound Jamaican. And the more anybody told us, wow, this one sounds Jamaican. Oh, wow, the intro here is so Jamaican. Then you felt good. But falling back and listening to a lot of other vibes and evolving, getting to know exactly who we are, I think that I started to push a little bit of that away and traveling around. So today, in fact, I encourage a lot of youth and tell them that be who you are. Yes, it's good to be, making music that sounds authentic, you say, but who are you? That's why we came out with Kuchoko. Kuchoko is just Jamaican reggae that we love, plus the African influences.
Is the Kuchoko coming from the reggae? Is it the?
Yes. Like the stride, and then of course Kuchoko, Bam. That's it. And that was how reggae was even named. Yeah. I mean, it came out of the strenge, came out of the mento and all that. And somebody just decided that it should be called reggae from the sound of the guitar. Strenge. So it was called strenge. But they removed the S and the T and it became reggae. See, so I would say that with time, I evolved seriously.
So who do you say you are now?
I am who I am, the African who loves reggae music and is trying to revolutionize it. A lot of people say, leave the reggae like that. It's authentic the way we like it. But my traveling around, in fact, has taught me a lot. You come on stage, everybody hears that you are African. They want to hear some African vibe. And there you are, half-baked Jamaican. You see, even with Jamaican festivals, you go in there, and African, everybody speaking Jamaican patois. Then you come on stage as an African. They don't want to hear your half-baked patois.
If I speak pidgin, say.
They want to hear pidgin. I remember when
music.
FOK and boys came out, and they were speaking the pidgin, and in fact, even Panji himself,
his record label is called Pidgin Music now.
Pidgin music. In fact, I mean, speaking the pidgin, speak patois. I couldn't. Because
Ghana, the creative industry,
to me.
through
This
the
is an
years.
African person. They are coming to you. They want to learn more about Africa. They are bringing themselves to the African level. Then you want to speak patois to them.
I remember Asafa Powell, the Jamaican athlete, was sitting in this chair, and I taught him some Ewe.
Yeah.
He dropped some patois on me, and I also gave him some Ewe vibe, and he loved it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean,
show yourself to who you are. As who you
show
are.
yourself. And in fact, my tours around, I will say that some of these vibes have really helped me. Going on stage with a dondo, playing this, playing that, jumping like the African that you are. Yes, you are still doing reggae music. It's sweet, it's beautiful. We have evolved.
We have evolved. We are still evolving, and we are talking Ghanaian music now. Because I want to talk a little bit more about how well we are doing in terms. And so for Panji first, because you've done film, music. I don't know whether you've done art. But it's all art anyway.
No, my younger brother is a famous artist.
Yes. So it's everything is there. How are we doing? How are we doing in Ghana today?
I think that I think we are doing well. When we compare ourselves to Nigeria, we think we are not doing well.
Do you think we over-compare ourselves to Nigeria? When I hear the conversations with the bloggers, they're always interested in what Nigerians are doing. It's almost as if we have a low self-esteem, always comparing ourselves to Nigeria. That's my vibe. I don't know what your vibe is.
Well, I think Ghana, we need to understand that Nigeria is our lai momo. Nigeria is our old girlfriend, or our sister, or our brother, or our wife, right? Nigeria might be big, but
we are older.
Yes, and you know, Ghana has been the creative hub of Africa at least since Nkrumah. And even before Nkrumah, Ghana has always been an incredibly creative space. I don't know why, but we have been pioneers, whether it is of high life music, whether it is of, let's say, embracing funky music or psychedelic music, embracing soul.
Boga high life.
Boga high life, hip life. You know, we take hip life for granted, but we were the first Africans to indigenize hip hop. We were the first Africans to indigenize dancehall. We were the first Africans to indigenize reggae. You know, so, and for me, just like Blakk Rasta is saying, I might love hip hop, but until I express hip hop my way, right? I'm a follower. I can't be a leader. And in all art, being a leader or being unique is very, very important. So it's, you speak to Nigerians, and some of them who are older will tell you of how they were inspired by Ghanaian high life in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s.
King Bruce, E.T.
Yes. E.T. Mensah, King Bruce, you know, Ramblers, you know, these were huge. Amachi Dede, you know, we forget that Amachi Dede, I think his first 2 albums were even recorded in Nigeria. Apparently he was touring Nigeria almost constantly. You know, so Ghana has always been a creative hub. And Nigeria has always been the country of incredible businessmen who are not afraid to invest in what they believe in. You know, Nigeria has always invested way more money into the creative space. Let's look at film. I remember
Ghana,
just around
the
the corner
creative
here
industry, through the
Ghana
years.
Films or TV3. In the early 90s, Ghanaian film producers were taking films like Diabolo and is it Baby Nayoka? I mean, Ghanaians were taking these films to Nigeria, showing them in movie theaters around Nigeria, and coming back to Ghana with bags of money. The Nigerian producers looked at this, and let's say by 96, so I'm talking 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, the African films Nigerians were watching were mostly made in Ghana. By 99, I would say the African films Ghanaians were watching were mostly Nigerian. So the Nigerians took what we were doing, invested a little bit more money into it. And also when it comes to the film industry, Nigeria has maybe even hundreds of theater courses in their universities. So I think when it came to the acting side, there were many Nigerians who were very good. You know, and I mean, you can take people, I mean, there are people who are exceptional, you know, Nigerian actors and so on. But you remember, even when the revolution began, they were often casting Ghanaians because those were the stars that they knew at the beginning. Now we've got to the point where when somebody says African film, or I'm going to watch an African movie, actually they are thinking of a Nigerian film.
Correct.
You know, so Nigeria, with their might and their business acumen and their willingness to invest, has literally taken over the entire African film industry. But in the early 90s, Ghana, we were pioneers of, you know, so Ghana is so often a pioneering nation.
Are we doing well now?
I think we are doing well because, I mean, if we look at the Afrobeats landscape, you know, Black Sherif is a major player. King Promise is a major player, you know, and sure, we might not have matched Ashake or Burna Boy or Davido in terms of global streaming or concerts or so on. But I think that, Nigeria is 10 times the size of Ghana. So, we need to learn from the Jamaicans, who have taken a population of 4 million people.
Right? It's like Greater Accra.
Smaller than Accra. It's like there are fewer Jamaicans than there are Ghanaians in Accra, right? And yet look at the global impact Jamaicans have made. But why? It's because they have always been themselves. If you take the story of Bob Marley, Bob Marley's mother was living and working in America. So, and Bob Marley spent time in America.
Ghana, the creative industry, through the years.
He had a very strong American influence. He was singing R&B and soul, and Bob Marley was successful because he had the accent. But it didn't take long for Bob Marley to embrace, himself. And Bob Marley's success came from him representing Trenchtown, representing Jamaica. You have never heard a Jamaican accent speak with a Jamaican artist speak with an American accent. Look at Shaggy. Shaggy is American. He was born, grew up in America, joined the American army. He served in Afghanistan, I think, or Iran or Iraq, or one of these wars. But when you hear Shaggy speak, there is very little to suggest he's from New York.
So the question, what I summarize from you is that be yourself.
Be yourself.
Let's take a pause now and listen to an artist who I know you know very well, who has always been himself. Here he comes, a pidgin music artist, our very own